Final Fantasy IV brought a lot of important firsts to the series. It was the first Final Fantasy made for the new and improved Super Nintendo console, and it was the first since the original to receive an international release outside of Japan. It introduced the active time battle system that gave encounters an exciting real-time dynamic, which would be used for the next decade of titles and set the standard for turn-based RPG combat. And it was also the first Final Fantasy game that was any good. With the leaps and bounds in graphics and sound thanks to the new technology, came equal strides in Squaresoft's ambition. While Final Fantasy II added some much appreciated narrative to the game, and 3 introduced the job class mechanic, 4 brought these ideas together in a meaningful way. Characters had, well, character now. They were given unique personalities, their own principles and goals, and an assigned class to help emphasize these traits. And in another first for main party members, a lucky few were given their own musical theme, such as the young, green-haired summoner from the Village of Mist, Rydia. This is a tune tailor-made to fit the character of Rydia. Innocent but mature, and with a hint of tragedy. And it plays during important moments for her, such as when she overcomes her fear of fire to cast the spell. Rydia is not the only party member with their own theme, though hers is the most simple in its use. Twin mages Palom and Porom get the same treatment, though they share a single theme between them. Similar is the theme for the prince in Bard's Clothes, Edward, though his theme is presented more diegetically, actually existing within the game's world, as a song he plays on his little harp. Baron's airship engineer Sid has a cheery, upbeat theme that is used not only for him, but also whenever repairs or upgrades are being made to your ship. And strangely, it's also used to represent Edge, playing when he joins the party late in the game, and one other moment not long after. There's no real story reason for this link. I suppose Edge shows a mild interest in airships, but I imagine it just wasn't worth writing an extra track for only 2 scenes, and Hey Sid was the most fitting in tone. So, okie dokie. Perhaps the most famous piece of music from Final Fantasy IV is the theme of love, which is meant to represent the romance between Cecil and Rosa. However, in practice, it kind of ends up just being Rosa's theme, as her only role outside of being a healer for the party is as Cecil's girlfriend, and to get kidnapped or fall mortally ill. I'm just glad Squaresoft got better at writing women. Cecil similarly doesn't technically have his own theme either, but rather co-ops another as his own. I talked about this more in depth in part 1, but when we first meet Cecil, he is a Dark Knight, and also captain of the Red Wings, Baron's elite military airship squadron. Immediately we are introduced to Cecil to the theme of the Red Wings. It plays during a scene in which the Red Wings raid an innocent village, causing Cecil to become disillusioned with his country and king, so he defects from the Red Wings. The next time we hear the track is when Cecil climbs Mount Ordeals to atone for his wrongdoings and become a paladin, where he goes head to head with his old Dark Knight self. As there has only been one prior use of this theme, there is a clear callback to Cecil's regretful past. And to really hammer it home, the melody is again used as the basis of a little fanfare that plays when he finally becomes a paladin. However, this moment, a third of the way through the game, is the peak of Cecil's narrative arc, and from here on in, the track isn't really used to represent Cecil at all, or even particularly the Red Wings. We hear it when first boarding Cid's airship, when Kane snaps out of Golbez's mind control and rejoins the party, immediately after Cid's sacrifice, during the attack on the Giant of Babel, and then one last time as the area theme for the Lunar Subterrane, the final dungeon of the game. And that Paladin fanfare, which borrows the motif, is also used when the Lunar Whale is lifted out of the ocean, and when Zemus is defeated. Try as I might, I can't discern any meaningful pattern between these scenes. Using the track as a catch-all for epic moments confuses its identity and lessens its impact when only loosely associated with multiple unrelated ideas. Thankfully though, all of this confusion happens after Cecil's redemption scene, so the track maintains its bite for its most crucial moment. With the exception of the Paladin fanfare, all of these characters have just one version of their theme that plays in every instance, no matter the context or mood. We get the exact same cue when Rydia triumphantly returns to save the party, as we do when she mourns over the deaths of everyone she's lost, despite these being two vastly different scenes conveying two opposing emotions. There are not any rearrangements of any of the character themes, at least for the protagonists. This is the theme of the big bad Golbez, with its massive pipe organ chords which give way to an ominous fugue-like section. This track plays whenever Golbez is doing something evil to the party, whether in the flesh, as a disembodied voice, or even just a hand. Golbez's motif is reused in one other track called Tower of Zot. The eponymous tower is Golbez's base of operations for a good chunk of the game, and serves as the area theme for the dungeon. It's a more militaristic take on Golbez's theme, trading in the pipe organ for brass and backed by a steady snare drum. And considering the party is storming the tower to rescue the hostage Rosa, it's a much more appropriate dungeon theme than a Baroque fugue would be. The characters of Final Fantasy IV make up a lot of the charm found in the game, but they are only one part of Squaresoft's attempt to up the ante in terms of narrative. We also get a relatively involved plot that touches, admittedly very gently, on some overarching themes, which are all represented in the music by a single motif that ties them together. Adventure is a basic staple of pretty much every Final Fantasy game, which allow you to lose yourself traveling across the world, free of life commitments and funding it by finding money on the ground. It truly is a fantasy world. You do this globetrotting via the world map, and in most of the games, including 4, the world map music is bestowed the title main theme of the game. Which is fair enough, as it's more than likely the track you'll be hearing the most of outside of the battle music. About halfway through the game, you find out a whole extra layer of the world map exists, the Underground, land of the Dwarves. The Underground features a new map theme, but it's based on the main motif from the Overworld. Very little in the actual melody has changed here, retaining the adventurous spirit of the original, but it's presented with a much smaller arrangement for this sparsely populated, cavernous region. As mentioned earlier, another major theme in Final Fantasy IV is redemption, primarily through the character of Cecil. During the climb up Mount Ordeals, the area theme references the main motif in its bridge section. Using the main theme motif here highlights this moment as a centerpiece of the story. Finally, there's the theme of sacrifice. Most of the characters risk and ultimately give up their lives in pursuit of their goal or in helping the party reach theirs. The moment they die, a short cue plays out, a sort of death motif. It's also used once as a joke for a very sleepy Cid. Please don't toy with my emotions like that, Square. The death motif then leads directly into the track Sorrow and Loss, a slow and somber variation on the main theme that plays out as the party members mourn the loss of their friend. So Final Fantasy IV's main theme is, for the first time in the series, actually treated like a main theme. It's used throughout the game as a leitmotif, to draw attention to the most important moments and connect them as part of the overarching story. For a game released all the way back in 1991, this is some pretty cool music narrative design. And with individual character themes that call back to previous developments, as well as a sprinkle of musical foreshadowing, Final Fantasy IV is an early example of how a game's soundtrack can be used as connective tissue to tie together individual plot points and subtly bring a sense of cohesion to the story. As important as Final Fantasy IV was for all of the firsts it brought to the series, it is often seen as a stepping stone to the peaks of greatness that was soon to come. In the next episode of Warriors of Leitmotif, we'll be looking at the soundtrack for the cult favourite Final Fantasy V, which is the only mainline single-player Final Fantasy game that I've yet to play. But from what I've heard of its soundtrack, coupled with my deep love of the job system, I have a feeling it's going to be pretty special. Thank you for joining me on this two-part journey through Final Fantasy IV's music. Things are still only just getting started. Special thanks to my patrons for their continued support, whose generosity I am so grateful for, and enables me to carve out a little time to make these videos. The more dollars I can receive from this means the more time I can commit to it, and the better and more frequent videos can be.